Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. You can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad. On today's show, we talk about the year the MCU finally died. Yes, and the resurrection of the summer blockbuster, because sadly that's been dead for a few years, but the summer blockbuster is back and doing very well, thank you very much. The resurgence has a lot to do with the COVID pandemic as well, but not just about that, but I'm really happy it's doing well. And please stay to the final part of the video where I'll be ranking the Superman films from worst to best. I'll be looking forward to doing that with you today. But first of all, let's talk about the year the MCU died and the resurrection of the summer blockbuster. Let's look at Thor: Love and Thunder, a mediocre, boring, dull movie that does absolutely nothing but kind of grind your gears. It's nothing. It's a waste of your time, your energy, your oxygen. The film is a total waste of space. Do you know what this film is projected to do by the end of its run? Around 720 million, apparently. That's according to these analysts. Now, back in the day, these mediocre MCU movies were bringing in $1 billion a picture. So what's changed? You and me. That's what's changed. You're fed up. I'm fed up. We're bored. We're bored of the teases from Feige and, the cameos and the connections. It was fun at first, wasn't it? It was really fun. We had the early days with Iron Man, Captain America, and all of those. And then we had the first Avengers movie. And it was fun to see these characters together. But the MCU is a one-trick pony. And when something or someone is a one-trick pony, you soon get bored of them. And the mainstream audience are now bored of these movies and this franchise and the way it's made. And then you kind of look at the resurgence this year of the summer blockbuster. Top Gun Maverick, the latest Jurassic World movie, the final one. By the way, I'm sure they'll be making more movies. I don't know what they're going to do. It will be interesting. But Universal are doing great with that franchise because there's not 3 or 4 Jurassic movies every year. There's one every 2-3 years. And that's the whole point. That's the old-fashioned model. That's how they used to release Star Wars movies, Superman movies. I think we may be going back to maybe you can have too much of a good thing. And we saw it with Star Wars. Having a mediocre Star Wars film every year is a problem. Because when you're having a yearly movie, or you've got 3 or 4 movies a year, let's look at the MCU. They've got the Disney Plus shows. They've got 3 or 4 movies a year. You need workers, you need staff, you need, artists, you need VFX people working around the clock. Now, of course, they're not going to bring in enough people to do the job. So what you see is lackluster content. And that's exactly what we saw with Thor: Love and Thunder. They kind of, in a way, got away with it with Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. But they're not getting away with it with Thor: Love and Thunder. This is a movie that's been cut to pieces, where the VFX has been rushed, bad writing, and it's led to a bad movie. And as I say, in the old days, a movie like this would make $1 billion. But the MCU isn't all that anymore. So what does this say? Does this mean that the audience are tiring of superheroes, or are they just tiring of the MCU? People will never tire of good movies. And if you're going to make a really great superhero or comic book movie, people will come in. That's what people want. And do you know what I think kind of changed this and didn't help the MCU is Matt Reeves, the Batman. Matt Reeves, the Batman, says this ain't going to be an action flick. This ain't going to be your typical Batman movie. This is the beginning of the story. This is going to be a bit like Goodfellas or something like that. It's going to tell the story of both the villains and our principal hero. And that film is so well made. That film is not rushed. And the studio kept faith, whether you like the studio's past indiscretions or not, with Matt Reeves, they kept faith in what he wanted to do because they wanted Matt there and they wanted Matt to make this movie. Originally, they wanted him to direct Ben Affleck's movie and Ben Affleck. But then Matt said, no, I want to make my own Batman movie and I don't want this cut down version of Ben's movie because you've destroyed his creativity and I don't want to have anything to do with that. Well done, Matt Reeves, for that. So they allowed him to make his own movie. Look, I wish we had the Batfleck movie. What they did to Ben and his movie was disgusting. We're all still fighting for that movie. We'll see what happens. So I think the Batman really didn't help the MCU, and many people who understand the industry were predicting this, that the Batman would destroy the MCU. And maybe that's what's happened here. Because when you see quality, but then you're given bad movies, when you're given the Obi-Wan series, or when you're given, the Boba Fett series, and people are comparing these things, and then you're seeing mediocre Marvel Cinematic Universe content, and you're getting James Gunn's The Suicide Squad. Really good movie, really well-made movie. He thought about his movie really deeply, as Matt Reeves did. And Peacemaker, again, it's a series, it's a comic book series that really thinks deeply about its subject matter. The MCU hasn't really ever felt deeply about anything it's done, to be honest with you. And we have to look back at how the MCU became successful. It became successful within the first Avengers movie. Forget the movies before the Avengers movie. The first Avengers movie is the reason the MCU became so huge, and from that movie, the media and the studio were working together. Kevin Feige teases the next level of the MCU. Joss Whedon says this, Joss Whedon says that about the Avengers. It began hyping you up over jack shit. And we all fell for it, left, right, and centre. Why can't the DCEU be this way? I wish the DCEU was like Marvel, like the MCU. I said this many times. What a fucking mistake that was, right? What were you thinking of? I never want my beloved DC to be anything like the MCU. I'm sorry, I don't. It has no depth. It has no soul. And they don't make movies. They just make an episode. It's the first episode, the second episode, third episode, 2 seasons, 3 seasons, 4 seasons, and they just changed it into phases. They put a television series, basically, on the big screen. And for some time, it worked. 2 things happened this year, actually 3 things happened this year, which I've explained on this channel before. We'll go through it again a bit more deeply. Top Gun Maverick. Everything, everywhere, all at once. Or is it everywhere, everything, all at once? I don't bloody know, right? And the Batman. So these 3 films changed everything, because you're seeing 3 really good movies. Top Gun Maverick is a typical old-fashioned summer blockbuster. And this is part of the resurrection of the summer blockbuster. All of a sudden, we've had big movies. Even the Elvis movie, that probably nowhere near $1 billion take-home, but it was a really good biopic. Elvis. The latest Jurassic World movie, Top Gun Maverick. Everything Everywhere All at Once wasn't a summer movie. That came out earlier this year. But I think in terms of Top Gun Maverick and the Jurassic movie, and even Minions is an interesting case in point, because you had Lightyear from Disney that did nothing. The public hated it. People are getting bored of the way Disney do things. The chats with the directors, the this, that, we care about equality, we care about this. No, you don't. And we all know that Disney don't care about representation, inclusion, and equality. We know that Disney are a fucking bad company. They weren't. Not when Walt Disney was running this company. And the stuff that Walt Disney made was pure. He loved animals. He loved representing animals and making them characters. And that's a beautiful thing, and creating creatures like, the Seven Dwarfs and things like that. Well, he didn't create them. He adapted the story, but he did it so well. So that Walt Disney's Disney is dead. And at this moment in time, it's not coming back. They're a conglomerate. They're a business. They don't care about entertainment, and they're a bunch of extremist politicians. So Lightyear is an example how Disney and the MCU are dying. So Minions is this really fun. Minions, The Rise of Gru, I think it's called. And it's great. And it works. All those movies, those Gru movies and Minion movies are fucking great. And this one is another one. And it works. It's a great idea. And people are not getting bored of those movies because, again, you don't get 3 or 4 of these movies a year. It's one every, once in a while. And I think As I say, when the MCU was so popular, wow, we're going to get 3 or 4 movies a year, we're going to get umpteen Disney Plus shows. I think the Disney Plus element of the MCU really killed it as well. But what happened to the MCU really is the lack of quality that we can see now. Whether that improves in Phase 5, but I think once you tarnish yourself in front of the consumer and the audience, it's very hard to get that love and respect back. Because at least the Phase 1 movies and the Phase 2 movies and, you know, even Phase 3 to a point, at least they were trying to give you some semblance of good-looking movies. But the MCU has never been art, it's never been high art, and that's okay. Many movies I grew up with, like the Arnold Schwarzenegger movies and some of the Stallone movies and the Van Damme movies and the Seagal movies, they weren't high art, they were just entertaining. We had the same debates back then. Don't think nothing's actually changed, because basically the strongman was the superhero back then. And everyone was debating it, you know, is Schwarzenegger a good actor, or is he just a muscle man? Of course, he wasn't a very good actor. He was good at what he did. People liked seeing him. And that was great. And I would never invalidate those days, because I love those films, but there's better, you know, there's better made movies than those. And that's the whole debate. But nothing was killing anything off. The strongman movies weren't killing, you know, like your Alien movies off, or, you know, your Star Wars movies off. There was room for everyone. But all of a sudden with the MCU, literally everyone was trying to copy and pattern and paste the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and they were failing at it. And maybe they were failing at it because they really didn't know how to make bad movies, because that's what you have to do. To copy and pattern the MCU, the actual movie, the individual movie, isn't your focus. It's the franchise. It's the extended story, using the word story very, very loosely. It's all garnish, everyone. The MCU has no foundations, and now they can't even be bothered to make an effort with their movies, aka Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, aka Thor Love and Thunder, which is the lowest of the low. And I'll repeat again, this movie's not going to make $1 billion. Nowhere near. And as I say, before they were making bad, mediocre tripe and making money and getting the hype. The whole thing was, look at mine, it's really big, right? In other words, we made $1 billion. You can't touch us. We can touch you now. As I said before, this is a great opportunity for all the studios, and especially the DCEU. WB can really take advantage of this, and I've mentioned it before. Black Adam, Shazam! Fury of the Gods, if they're really good, well-made movies, and of course I know that Black Adam is a great movie. Shazam! Fury of the Gods I haven't seen, but I've seen all the leaks around and they sound very, very exciting. So there's an opportunity for the DCEU, but this is the first chink in the armour of the MCU. It's because popularity breeds contempt. When you're so popular, you think you can get away with anything. Because what Feige saw was, well, hang on a minute, you know, Ant-Man was a mediocre film. Ant-Man and the Wasp was a mediocre film, and we made a lot of money on those movies. So that means we can make any old shit, and these idiots will swallow it. Well, guess what? The raw mincemeat isn't going down so well now. So the mediocrity, the creative bankruptcy is there for everyone to see, because the mediocrity of the MCU has always been there to a point, but this is now not making an effort. They have lost the mainstream audience. They're keeping the MCU fans, some of the kids and some of the Marvel comic book fans, but a lot of them always hated the MCU and what it stood for. It's not a good representation of Stan Lee's Marvel Comics at the end of the day. In all honesty, when I first heard they were doing a Marvel Cinematic Universe, I was excited because I remember back to Sam Raimi's trilogy, to Bryan Singer's first 2 X-Men, and I thought, a guy who kind of worked behind the scenes on these movies, obviously is going to give us a similar level. But really, very rarely has the MCU reached the heights of Spider-Man, Spider-Man 2, X-Men, and X2. Or even Logan. There's not a Logan in that fucking franchise. There's not. The best Marvel movies have come from Bryan Singer and Sam Raimi. It's as simple as that. And yes, Avengers Infinity War is a very good, deep, dark movie with a lot of story. Captain America and the Winter Soldier is a very good movie. But those 2 movies are a rarity. And they're the only ones who can be compared to the great comic book movies like X2, Spider-Man, Spider-Man 2, you know, and the Joker movie, and Batman 89, and Batman Returns, and Man of Steel, and BVS, and Superman the movie, the great, iconic comic book movies. Laugh if you like, but these movies I've just reeled off are absolutely fucking iconic. There's no iconography in the MCU. This is a franchise that people will hark back to and say, wow, this is still the highest, you know, grossing franchise of all time. But people won't look back at the films. That's the thing. The MCU will be the thing where the next film's box office is compared to the MCU's box office, and they say, oh my god, this film is finally beaten the record of Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame. But people won't talk about the actual movies. They don't have rewatchability quality to them. Very few of them do. And it's something I've been saying for a very long time. And isn't it interesting that we have to go back to Zack Snyder again? Because when Zack Snyder was making Man of Steel, when Zack Snyder was making Batman vs Superman Dawn of Justice, and his Justice League movie, which they tried to destroy and delete and hide, everyone was saying the Marvel Cinematic Universe is so great and Snyder is so bad. Which movies are going to last longer, everyone? Of course, Man of Steel will. Of course, BVS will. And his Justice League movie is a beautiful contemporary superhero movie. It sums up the world we live in. And it's so interesting the hate those films got compared to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which is so bland and mediocre. And I think it's the analogy from Back to the Future. Maybe you guys ain't ready for this yet, but your kids are going to love it. Ranking every Superman movie from worst to best. I'm really looking forward to doing this yet again. I did this years ago, but we're going to do this again. So let's go. There doesn't have to be much of a decision made, which is the worst Superman movie ever made. It's Superman 4, The Quest for Peace. It is the worst Superman movie ever made, but I fucking love it. I was 15 years old and I went to see this movie, and I love Nuclear Man, and I loved Superman having someone to battle. I love Nuclear Man's nuclear, footprints burning into the ground. I love Lenny. I love Lex. I love Lacey Warfield. I love Lois Lane. Jimmy Olsen's back. And the highlights of this film, and this is my worst on my list, and I'm glowing about it because, look, I understand that Chris was betrayed. The studio withdrew the budget, and we've discussed that before. When he addresses the UN, I always break down and cry. So Lacey and Lois are standing in the auditorium, and Lacey goes, what's he going to say? And Lois goes, something wonderful. And he does. And Christopher Reeve is really performing the fuck out of it. It's amazing. This is a film with not much of a budget. The VFX isn't very good in places, because some places it's quite good actually, like the nuclear footprint from Nuclear Man. That's actually revolutionary. We're talking about 1987 here. Don't forget about that. So they tried their best, but there were some good moments in this film and some emotional moments, but unfortunately it didn't look to the standard of a Superman movie. So I may say that Superman 4 is my worst in my list, but that doesn't mean I hate it. So now we're going to talk about Superman 3. Now, this is a very, very interesting movie to me, because this isn't like Superman 4. The budget's there, the quality's there, it looks amazing for the time. It's aged well, like most of the Reeves films have, not Superman 4, of course. But Superman 3 is kind of a victim of its own behind-the-scenes issues. You know, they fell out with Dick Donner, they got rid of Dick Donner. The consequences of that wouldn't be seen with Superman 2, they will be seen with Superman 3. But I still think Superman 3 is a good, solid enough Superman movie, despite Dick Donner not being there. Because Margot Kidder was very, very vocal about her hatred for the Salkinds, the producers, and then sacking Dick Donner, the director of Superman the movie, they pushed her out of Superman 3. So they brought in Annette O'Toole as Clark's teenage love interest. Well, she wasn't a teenager in this movie, but, you know, Clark and Lana, if you watch Smallville, that's Clark's love story in his teenage years. So they bring back an adult Lana Lang, played by the brilliant Annette O'Toole. And Annette does great. It was so great to get her in Smallville because of that role. Of course, you know, Annette's always been so charming and disarming as an actress, and she does a great job here. And her and Chris are, you know, are beautiful together. Their chemistry is as good as Margot's and Chris's in Superman the movie and Superman 2. So this is a very interesting story because Clark decides to go back to Smallville to tell a story. And we have a new villain in this film. We have Robert Vaughn's, is it Ross Webster? That's right. And we've got Richard Pryor. They decided to put stand-up comic Richard Pryor in a Superman film because in a Johnny Carson interview, he said he'd love to be in Superman. And so they said, yeah, let's put him in. You probably don't know this, but Richard Pryor was afraid of heights. So he hated the flying scenes because you still have to put him up in strings with Chris. And it was very, very difficult. And actually, Richard Pryor was an old boyfriend of Margot Kidder, a.k.a. Lois Lane as well. Don't know if you knew that. The greatest moment in this film is Superman versus Clark Kent. It's absolutely fantastic. It's iconic. A lot of people don't like Superman 3, don't think it has the charm of the first two movies. But I do like it. I like it when Superman kicks the missiles like that. And they all kind of have a domino effect and they all destroy each other. It's great. And you see the Superman game. You see Ross Webster playing the Superman game. It's so freaking cool. And Lorelei is absolutely fit. Pamela Stephenson was a model. And we get evil Superman and Lorelei, a.k.a. Pamela Stephenson, doing it and flirting on the Statue of Liberty. Ultimately, this isn't the worst Superman film of all time. It's just there because there are better Superman films. This is a very interesting list because I have to listen. I don't know how I will rank them, but I have to have Superman the movie, I have to have Man of Steel, and I have to have Superman 2 up there, definitely. And Batman vs Superman is in my list as well. So what to do? I think next, it's obvious that Superman Returns is next. Superman Returns is a very, very interesting film for me because this is supposed to be the sequel to Superman 2 because Bryan Singer, there is a Robert Singer in Hollywood, by the way, but yeah, Bryan Singer directed this movie. He actually, you know, left the X-Men movie franchise, which I said yesterday was a big mistake, and I stick with that. He should have stuck with what he knew. But he was obsessed with Superman, so he wanted to do a Superman movie. So the problem is with Superman Returns, for a sequel of the Donnerverse, it doesn't look like the Donnerverse at all. We got John Williams' classic theme, which is great. I'm glad they kept the iconic theme, because if you're going to continue that franchise, it needs to have some kind of personality. And mostly the Daily Planet does not look anything like the Dick Donner Daily Planet. It just doesn't resemble anything. I like Brandon Routh. And in stages of that film, I think Brandon Routh is really good. I don't particularly think he's a great Clark Kent. I think he's a better Superman than Clark Kent. The costume doesn't do him any favours. The costume it reduces him. It makes him look shorter because Brandon Routh is really tall. He's about 6 foot. But if you look at the way Singer shoots him in this movie, in the suit that he gives him, he makes him look shorter than he actually is. So we don't see that frame that Cavill's got and Reeves got in Man of Steel and Superman the movie, Superman 2, Superman 3 and Superman 4. I think Singer shot this movie wrong. I think Singer gave this movie the wrong look, and some of the VFX doesn't work, but then sometimes you get Superman saving the plane, which is some of the best Superman VFX we have ever seen. And so it's tomatoes. I think the story of Superman coming back after 5 years is pretty good. And, you know, Lois Lane as a kid, that's Superman's, but he doesn't know that. And, you know, she's with Richard White. That's a good storyline because it gives Superman these emotional challenges, because it's hard to challenge Superman because he's all powerful. But, of course, you've got kryptonite, which they use in Superman Returns. You should always use kryptonite as far as I'm concerned. So the music was great by John Ottman. Really liked the music. There's a lot of good things about this movie, but this movie didn't know if it was a sequel to Superman the movie and Superman 2 or its own thing. Singer did this thing where Jason, Superman's son, has powers. But, and basically all they had to do in this movie is create Connor Kent. But Bryan Singer, the problem with Bryan is, self-proclaimed, he's never picked up a comic book in his life. I'm sure he researched Superman and X-Men a little bit. I think he researched X-Men more than he did Superman. But if he actually understood the Superman comics and DC, he would have realized instead of having Jason be Lois's son, that they could have had Lex Luthor use his DNA and Superman's DNA to create this kid that could have been Connor Kent. And I think this film would have gone down a whole lot better. Another problem with Superman Returns, they cut the brilliant, excellent Return to Krypton sequence. That actually tells you the emotional depth of despair Kal-El has in this film because he's been away for 5 years. He's gone back to his planet hoping he would find, his people, and that was never going to happen. Then he's weakened by the kryptonite. You have this great scene where he goes back in the ship and back to Earth. It's brilliant. That should have been a pre-title sequence. Singer and WB cutting that out made a huge mistake because that is your narrative of him being where he's being. Show is better than just, don't show. Show and tell is a lot better than, just telling us that he went out there. And the mistake they made, they showed us that Return to Krypton sequence as well. So I believe Superman Returns could have been a really good film, but when you get someone making a Superman movie that knows jack shit about DC and Superman, that's the problem. Bryan Singer has similar issues to Patty Jenkins. Patty Jenkins is obsessed with Linda Carter's Wonder Woman. She thinks she has an understanding of the character because of Linda Carter's kind of thirst trap Wonder Woman, and that's a joke. And it's the same as Bryan Singer. Dick Donner did a brilliant job with Superman and Christopher Reeve with his other movies. But the point is that doesn't necessarily mean that's the only way to make a Superman movie. I think if Bryan Singer made his own movie, he would have made a much better movie than he ultimately did. So, yes, I like rewatching Superman Returns. I think it's an okay movie. It has its issues in places, Kate Bosworth is a really solid actress. I don't know if she was Lois or not. Some people didn't like her, said she was too young. They didn't like the fact she was wearing a wig and you could see her forehead. Look, those things don't bother me. But ultimately, yes, the film didn't make enough money to continue, and that's a shame because Singer had a really good idea for the sequel, Superman Man of Steel, where Jason is killed by Brainiac. They bring Brainiac into the sequel. So that would have been great. So my next movie is Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice. For me, Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice is equally a Batman film and a Superman film. I really like this film, and people didn't appreciate it at the time, but I think people are starting to appreciate what Snyder and Terrio and the story they were telling here. There's more of an appreciation for it now. Superman's a bit like that celebrity that gets his first #1 in this movie. A lot of people love him, but as soon as you get to the very top of being famous, people want to shoot you down. And this is what happens to Superman in BVS. And it's a very, very interesting story because Snyder is also trying to introduce the other Justice League members. And I think the way they're introduced in this movie is really good. This is a really interesting story for Superman in BVS. He wants to belong. He wants to be the hero Jonathan Kent wanted him to become. And he does become that hero. But then Lex Luthor manipulates Batman to kill him. Obviously, he doesn't kill him, but there's a manipulation. He's manipulating Superman against Batman and Batman against Superman. And we see it all the time online, and this is how clever BVS is. It's the manipulation of the innocent. We see YouTubers do it all the time, winding you up, stirring your hatred against this or that. Talking about problems and issues that are not really problems and issues. And this is what happens in BVS. Personally, I think this is a great representation of Superman. And I think BVS is a great movie. Superman 2. Superman 2 is a brilliant Superman sequel. This is my first third act supervillain, superhero battle movie. And for the time, which was 1980, yes, 1980, they pulled it off. Superman versus Zod and Ursa and Non is an epic fight for the time in the middle of Metropolis. Buildings are being damaged, you know, people are at risk. I don't think anyone actually died in that battle, which is interesting because that was the controversy of Man of Steel. But yes, Superman 2 has a great story. It continues from Superman the movie. It's a shame Dick Donner didn't get to tell his story of it, but the Donner cut is out there if you want to check it out, and it's a great movie. But I think because I saw Superman 2 first, I do prefer Superman 2 to the Donner cut, only because the Donner cut isn't really a complete vision from Richard Donner, and other scenes are put in it as well. And in some elements, it doesn't work. In other elements, it really works better than Richard Lester's Superman 2. But I like the element of Superman, you know, going to Paris and saving everyone from the bomb, saving Lois from the bomb, seeing Lois being a journalist at the beginning of the film. And then Superman and Lois deciding to embrace their relationship, and Superman being told he has to sacrifice his Kryptonian heritage for Lois, and he does, which makes him weak, which makes the world weaker when the three villains from Krypton invade. General Zod, Terence Stamper's General Zod is just great fucking quality. Val, kneel before Zod! Fucking brilliant. And that phrase has been coined for the past 30, 40 years. I mean, listen, we'll talk about Michael Shannon Zod very, very shortly. But it's a great version. Sarah Douglas is amazing, and Jack O'Halloran is great as the non-speaking Non as well. So yeah, this film has great action, it has a great story, it saves its action to the third act, which I think is a really good idea, but I love Superman 2. Great movie. So it's interesting now because we have two movies, unless I've missed one out, and if I've missed any out, I'm sorry. Man of Steel, Superman the movie. Which one is the best Superman movie? It's an interesting one. I think I have to leave Man of Steel in second place. Look, Man of Steel is a contemporary look at Superman. It's brilliant. It's a beautiful looking film. It's a well-written film. The music's brilliant. It's beautifully edited and directed. It's the perfect modern day version of Superman. And it's telling this alien invasion story. It's telling us about what could happen to Earth. What happens to Krypton could happen to Earth. And, you know, it's a very, very interesting story if you look at it deep enough. Michael Shannon Zod is one of the best comic book movie villains of all time because he's not just the bad guy. He's doing the wrong things about his issues, definitely. He's willing to hurt people. He's willing to, you know, bury the humans to create, you know, Krypton on Earth. But some of the elements of him are brilliant. Actually, all of the elements are brilliant, but these are the elements I really, really like. His relationship with Jor-El, the regret in his eyes when he deletes Jor-El from the computer near the end of the movie as well. And I just think this guy really killed it. And the writing for this character by David Goyer was absolutely fantastic. So as I say, Man of Steel is a great contemporary story. For the people who didn't like Man of Steel, I think you didn't like it because it was a modern day contemporary look at Superman. And it puts him in the real world. What if this superpowered, being was in our world? And how would we react to it? Would we all be cheering like Superman the movie? No. Some people just would be afraid of him and would deny him. And that's very, very realistic. And we see a lot of that in BVS, which I think is great. But Man of Steel is a great movie. And I'm still hoping, beyond all hope, for that sequel and Henry to return. Because Henry Cavill is the best thing about this movie. He's absolutely fantastic. His chemistry with Diane Lane as his mother, Martha Kent, is brilliant as well. I think Amy Adams is a great Lois Lane without being the greatest Lois Lane as far as I'm concerned, but a great Lois Lane, great actress, great piece of casting. So that's in second place. Number one is Superman the movie. It's number one for me, and it doesn't have to be for you. I'm not invalidating your number one. I'm just giving you my opinion. Superman the movie, as I bored you about endlessly on this channel, is the first movie and superhero movie and Superman movie I ever saw. It made me fall in love with film, superheroes, DC, and especially Superman. This movie really looks at the comics and wants to keep that Americana element of it. It wants to be bright. It wants to have the Americana apple pie, cream, after your dinner. It really wanted to keep those American traditions going, because don't forget, just as Man of Steel is a representation of the time we lived in 2013, and even now, really, Superman the movie is the representation of the 70s and 1978, especially. So they keep the core myth of Superman being a pure hero, of the public accepting him just like that. And back in 1978, everyone, including me, and I didn't see it in 1978, I didn't go to the cinema. How old was I in 1978? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I was 6 years old. Never going to happen. But I saw it on ITV, on the British television premiere, and I loved it. This film broke the mold to give visuals that they were impossible to do back then. Richard Donner's health was under severe risk because of the pressure the Salkinds were putting him under, because he was spending so much money to make this a really good movie, and the Salkinds wanted to make a cheap movie, and you were never going to get away with it, and it wouldn't be the classic it is today. So Superman the movie is my favourite Superman movie ever made. But don't doubt what I feel about Man of Steel, because Man of Steel is a great movie. Ultimately, I don't hate any Superman movie, but why don't you let me know your ranking from worst to best of all the Superman movies? This has been Movies TV Mad. I'm Mick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends and your wives. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you never miss this beautiful perfection. And I'll see you on Tuesday's video. If it is Tuesday tomorrow, I don't know. I don't even know what bloody year it is, 2019. Anyway, I know it's 2022. Until we see each other again, goodbye, au revoir, auf Wiedersehen.